Take picture. Button.
Hi guys, welcome back to another video. So I'm currently at my summer job. So I don't have a table, so I'm using my tabletop tripod on a nightstand. um, so if I'm not looking directly in the camera, I apologize. I am gonna try my best, but I'm sorry if I don't look in the camera. Um, so I thought I would make a video about COVID because last year I made a video about my experience with COVID, as far as my perspective. I didn't have it, but I talked about my experiences with it, being a college student and going home to my parents' house, working clinicals with COVID, as a healthcare worker. Um, so I never really went into detail about this year, but I haven't posted a lot of videos recently. A lot kind of happened, and I just haven't really had the mental energy to be that person that's like, everything's great, life is good. Yeah, so apologies I haven't posted a lot. It's just been a lot, mentally, emotionally, and I'm a person that likes to act like everything's perfectly fine. So, you know, um, it's been a difficult year, and I thought I would make a video about it because everyone has had a difficult couple of years, and um, I think ignoring the problem is not going to make it go away. So, yeah, let me just tell you about my experience. So, um, I got a house in town last August, and so it would have been like 11 months ago because it's July. And I learned how to walk around town and everything. And about 2 weeks after I moved into my new house, my father calls me and says that he has COVID and is in the hospital. Um, and my sister and I had not been around him, so we were okay. But yeah, so my dad had COVID and he um, was not doing well. We weren't allowed to visit because COVID restrictions in the hospital and everything. So sorry, there's a cuckoo clock going off in the building. um, yeah, so it was very stressful. We couldn't go see him, and you know, um, it was just a lot. And my parents are divorced, so my stepmom was there in the hospital with him because she works at the hospital, and she was giving us updates on how he was doing. Um, he was very, very close to dying, and we didn't know until afterwards. He didn't want us to know. He didn't want us to worry, which I get to an extent. But I'm like, come on, man. Like, we want to know if you're okay. Um, so he went home. He was on oxygen for quite a while. He was just really weak, which is really weird because I know my dad's a very strong guy. He's like the kind of person that you would think of when you think of um, I don't want to say like a bodybuilder, but like a really strong man. Like someone
Messages. Now. Team Qua. Audio message.
who's gonna fight for you. And that's my dad. He's very strongly built, muscular, everything like that, and very tall compared to me at least. Um, and he lost a lot of weight. He couldn't breathe hardly. He would just struggle to like walk like anywhere because his lungs were so weak. He doesn't smoke, so it was okay. Like the doctors had told him that if he would have smoked, he would have lost his life probably, because he didn't have much lung tissue left to work with. But uh, the alveoli can regenerate in the lungs and everything, so it's getting there. It's getting better. He can breathe on his own now. But the first time I saw him with oxygen, I like freaked out because I've been around people with oxygen, but it's always been in a hospital setting. And I don't know if you've ever heard the sound of oxygen. It's very loud. It's like a ticking and like a whooshing sound. It's really loud, really disorienting. It sounds like a dragon is in the room, honestly. Like it's scary. And I mean, like I've been around oxygen before, but never in someone's home. So when I went to see my dad, he was on oxygen, and it was just really weird because I never heard it in someone's house. um, but yeah, so he was doing better. Everything was good, and he is now off the oxygen. He's breathing on his own. He's back to work and everything. But it was just really hard, because that's my dad, and I almost lost him. Um, and I couldn't see him, when he was in the hospital. So months go by, everything's kind of back to normal. I am just living life, walking around town, learning everything, looking for jobs still, everything goes on. Well, then in December, I was talking to my best friend on the phone, and it was around Christmas time. It was like the week before Christmas. So we were talking about Christmas, what our plans were, and everything. And my friend and I, we don't talk that much. Like, we talk, like, maybe once every 2 weeks we'd talk, and we would have, like, 3-hour conversations on the phone about life and about everything important, but we thought it was important at the time. So she calls me, and it's, like, a Saturday, and we talk for, like, hours. And I was eating these cookies. They come in a tin. They're, like, really long. Like,
Messages. Now. 听话. Audio message.
sorry, I keep eating messages. These are long, like, straw-shaped cookies, and they have little cream-filled centers in the middle. It's really good. And anyway, I remember that because we were FaceTiming, and I was like, what's in this can? I was, like, shaking the jar so she could see the can of cookies. My friend was Simon, by the way. And, yeah, so I remember that. So these cookies are great. They were chocolate. So a couple days later, Christmas comes, and I'll get to that in a little bit, but I had something happen about a year ago, and so ever since then I haven't been totally myself around other people. I don't really like people getting close to me, and it just stresses me out. So Christmas was very stressful. I don't like people being around me and touching me and just like hugging in general. Like, it's so awkward. I'm like, no, please go away. So Christmas was very difficult. I was okay, but I wasn't in the greatest mental state. So that Christmas Eve night, I texted my friend and said, hey, I want to wish you Merry Christmas, and hopefully you're doing well, because she said that family was coming over. So her texts were very short, and I knew something was kind of wrong because whenever she would text with audio messages, so that way it was her voice, and she was not doing that. She was typing it. There was one or two word responses to my questions. But I was like, okay, it's Christmas, everything's fine, nothing's wrong. So then a couple weeks later, it's January, New Year's is over. It's about the middle, or maybe not the middle, maybe like second, third week of January. And my mom comes over to my house. And my mom's very, kind of a chill person, She, like, if something's wrong, she will come over and tell you. But she gets this, really serious voice. And I knew something was wrong, because I was on the phone with someone, and she goes, get off the phone, I'm here. And I'm like, okay, well, that's rude, but okay, what's going on? And I found out that my friend had COVID, and she was in the hospital. And she had some pre-existing health conditions. She was a year younger than me, and she was in the hospital with COVID. And so I was obviously very concerned. Rumors were spreading and all that, and I wasn't sure what was happening. So, a couple weeks go by. I'm like frantically worried. I call some people, let them know what's happening. And about a week later, this is near the end of January, I decided to call the hospital and talk to her. I didn't know if she could talk because everyone was saying that she was on oxygen and she couldn't breathe and she had like lung issues and she, wasn't able to talk. So I was like, okay, well, maybe if she can't talk, at least I can talk to her. At least she'll know that I'm there. Because I couldn't be there again because the hospital was shut down because of COVID. This is January of 2022, by the way. So I go to the, I call her, and she talks to me for a little bit, and she's like, I'm really tired, like, I need to go to sleep. And I was like, okay, that's fine, I understand. And she said, I'm sorry I haven't called you, like, I haven't had energy. I'm like, it's totally fine, I understand. Go to sleep, it's fine. I'll talk to you later. And, she'd been through a rough patch, they weren't sure if she was going to make it or not. And, she'd had it since, like, around Christmas time, so, it was really kind of scary because we didn't know. I mean, we knew she was probably fine at this point because she had already been to the rough patch. You know, she'd made it through. She pulled through. They weren't really sure. The doctors weren't sure because of her pre-existing health conditions and everything. But she made it through. Everything was good when I talked to her. And so I got with a bunch of people and we were going to go give her some gifts because I wanted to work on me being the OTA person I am. I wanted to give her some skills to work up to because she was very weak. So I looked on Amazon because we also had a snowstorm that weekend. I remember that because it was snowing like a lot, and we don't get a lot of snow where I live, so it was like everything was closed for like a week. It was crazy. So I was on Amazon. I was looking up different things, and I found a bunch of really cool stuff like building a stuffed animal using your hands. So like you put the stuffing in and you hand sew it. There was just a lot of strengthening things. And then I got her some food because I was like, she'd never lost her sense of taste. She has an appetite. So I was like, okay, cool. So, because walking was a big thing. She couldn't really walk very well. She was like struggling. So I was like, okay, cool. So if I get you some food, we're gonna put it like at one end of the room, and you have to like walk to get your food. You know, just things to kind of build up and reward, and just you know, make her feel like she was getting somewhere in life. You know, because COVID takes a lot out of people, and you know, so she needed to get her strength back and be functional again, and she didn't really understand fully the effect of, oh, I can't get up and walk across the room. Like, no, you can't anymore, you know. So, yeah. So I'd gotten all those, and I was texting her and asking her what room she was in because I wasn't sure exactly if she was in the same room because when I talked to her mom that night, they had said that they were going to move her to, you know, a step-down unit, so smaller, you know, less critical care. It was more of a normal, like they're still going to monitor you, but it's not like life-threatening kind of monitoring. And so I texted her, I said, hey, what room are you in? And she never responded. And I was like, maybe she's sleeping, I'll just give it a couple of days. Well, so that next day, I am, I don't know, I was doing something, and my mom came over again, and she was all serious, and I was like, oh no. Like, I knew, I kind of had a feeling, and so she was like, yeah, I just want to let you know, your friend died, like at, I think it was like a couple hours ago, and the part that I hate the most is I didn't cry. Like, I was just like, okay, like, that happened. I'll cry a little bit. Like, I think I cried, like, 4 tears. I don't really show my emotions a lot. Like, so, I was really annoyed. I was like, come on, self. Like, you can at least cry. And I was like, no, I can't. I'm good. Everything's fine. I'm not going to cry. It's totally fine. So then, that was a really hard night. It didn't really hit me until a couple of days later. Actually, it hit me like the next week, because the next week was her funeral, and we were at church, and all of a sudden, I just started like sobbing in the middle of church, and I couldn't stop. Like, I would try to stop, and it would just keep coming, and it was like awful. And the hardest part was I'm never gonna be able to talk to my friend. You know, I can't call her up and be like, hey, do you remember when this happened? Or hey, you know, how's life going? You know, and we grew up together. She's my best friend, and just the idea that I'll never be able to tell her how my life's going, that just really bothers me, you know. So I went to the funeral, and there was this cow. They had this giant cow. It was a big stuffed cow, and one of the nurses had given it to my friend when she was in the hospital, and they had, my friend's mom was asking me whenever I'd called that night what they were going to do with a giant cow whenever my friend went home. I was like, I don't know, man, like, we can't just, like, leave it in the hospital because this giant cow. So at the funeral home, I was walking around kind of feeling everything, and, there was the giant cow on the table, and for some reason, I just started, like, crying, and I was like, okay, it's a cow. Like, why am I crying about this cow? And that's when it really hit me, you know. Well, and then a couple of weeks later, let me go back to the funeral first. So I was really upset because um, not a lot of our people our age showed up. Like my classmates, we had like 100 and something people in our class, and none of them showed up. And I was very, very angry um, because my friend had some other disabilities along with, you know, physical. She wasn't blind or anything; she could see. Um, but I was more upset because people were posting on their Facebook and social media about how they would miss her and how great she was in the world and all this stuff, and none of them showed up at her funeral. Like people my ages. There were a lot of adults there, like teachers and everything. Um, well, I guess we were adults too, but you know, people our age. No one was there except for like one person. And ooh, I was just so mad that day. Like I was just mad about everything. So everything just like really made me mad. Um, so you know, I was like, I gotta hold it together. My friend's mom and everybody else is here, so I can't scream at people. But I really want them to show up. Like that's not right. So they're not showing up for her funeral. Um, so yeah, that was my first close death with COVID. And it really bothered me a lot because, you know, she was my age, a little bit younger, and like we had so many plans we were gonna do with our lives. We were gonna go to the beach. We were gonna go do all this really awesome stuff, and we can't do that now. And like, you know, it just really bothers me sometimes. So moving on to the next part. So that was like February. So in April, I got a concussion. Uh, and then I was still looking for jobs and everything, and I applied. So I was like emailing different summer camps and everything like that because I had emailed several different blind schools, several different summer camps, and asked if they had any openings, any volunteer work, anything. Like I was desperate for something, and I emailed a blind school and I said, "Hey, do you have anything I could like volunteer for?" And they were like, they didn't respond, and I was like, "Oh no, they didn't get my message." A couple weeks go by, I finally get a message, and it was to all these people on like an email list, and it was like, "Here's our open positions for this summer," and it gave a list, and it said, "If you would like an interview, please email blah blah blah." So on a hunch, I just emailed so and so, and excuse me, we set up an interview on the internet on the Google Meet, and I was shocked because I don't look at the camera when I. Okay, well I try to look at the camera, but I don't do a very good job. Like even right now, I'm kind of like fading. There we go. I was kind of like turning away. So I wasn't looking in the camera, and I explained. I was like, "Hey, I'm blind, so ask whatever you want." And they didn't. They didn't ask what they, they saw me as a person, and that really, like, I was like, "Oh my gosh, like this is awesome. Like if I don't get this job, at least I know that people are gonna see me as a person that's capable of something." Um, because that week I had other interviews as well, and they were very negative. Um, like I would get interviews and I would tell them I was blind, and it would kind of be like, "Oh, well, how do you do this? How do you do that?" And then I would explain. They'd be like, "Okay, well, we'll let you know." And then it would be like, I would never hear anything again. Even if I emailed, they just wouldn't respond, or they would respond and be like, "Yeah, we found other people," or they would come up with something. Um, my personal favorite was the ones that said that they don't see how a blind person can work in their hospital. So yeah. So I was very shocked when I got the interview. I was like, "Oh my gosh, they think I'm a person. Like this is awesome." Um, so then something crazy happened. So a couple weeks later, I'm so it's my friend's birthday, and I was very worried about how I would do mentally. I was okay. It was just it was just a lot. So that day we went to McDonald's. We were in the drive-thru, and I get this message on my phone. It was an email from the school, and it said, "Hey, we'd like to offer you a job at this place, and here's when you would start and everything else." And I was like, "Oh my gosh! Like they offered me a job! Like, yay!" And so it was on my friend's birthday, so that was very special. I'm not gonna say my friend's name because it's private. So um, yeah, it was great. So I was really shocked. I was like, I finally got someone. Well, so then a couple weeks pass, and I'm ready to go. I've got everything packed, and I start feeling a little bit off. A little bit allergies, congestion, everything else, and everyone that I was around was feeling the same way. Well, then a couple days later, they were like, "I have COVID," and I was like, "Oh shoot!" So then I go to get tested the next day, and I have COVID too. And so I was like really out of it. Like I was like really tired and just exhausted. Like I could sleep for hours. Um, so I called the job and I said, "Hey, here's the deal. I have COVID. What do I do?" So they're gonna let me stay a little bit, you know, because I really need the experience. I'm not even worried about the money. I just need the experience of working with people with blindness, but also other disabilities too. Just having that nice um, background. Having this little bit of work experience to um, to kind of uh, build up my resume. Because I haven't worked in 2 years, so as far as my clinicals, Um, so yeah, so I got COVID. I'm good now. I can function now. I get really tired. Um, this is my first week here, and I slept for 10 hours yesterday. It was a Saturday. So I think my body's just trying to chill. Um, but yeah, so I'm in a big city, and definitely different. I like there's so many people everywhere, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, people, like, please go away. I flew by myself. I took an Uber by myself. When I say by myself, what I mean by that is that I went by myself and I talked to people on the way and they helped me. So, like, when I get to the airport, I wait at the counter for someone to escort me to security. Go through security. That person escorts me to the gate. I ask the gate person for assistance to help me pre-board. Then the flight attendants help me pre-board. They get everything all set up. I get off the plane. Uh, Flight attendant helped me get off the plane. We go to the gate, or the terminal, sorry, whatever, the place where the plane lands. Uh, Someone's there to meet me from the airport staff that I'd set up on the way to the airport. They get me to the baggage area where I get my bags. Then they hand me off to someone who can help me outside to take an Uber slash car slash whatever I'm taking. Uber driver assists me to the place I'm going, and then repeat, basically. Um, it's definitely challenging. It's definitely scary. I've never done it before by myself completely. Um, but yeah, like, it's really good. I like it. Kind of stressful, mainly because I don't know a lot of people and everything. But yeah, it works out. So right now I don't have COVID. I'm good. Um, but yeah, like, I was really concerned because I was struggling sometimes just to like I'd wake up at night and I'd be panicking because I was like, okay, uh, am I struggling to breathe because I'm thinking about breathing, or am I actually having trouble breathing? So then I would like check my oxygen. It would be like, your oxygen is 98%. I'm like, okay, I can breathe just fine. I'm overthinking it. Chill. Um, so yeah, so that's how my COVID adventure has been this year. I've had some difficulty a lot with interviews. The nice part is they're all virtual, but the difficult part is that sometimes the interviewers, if they can't see you in person, they kind of get a little bit awkward when it comes to my blindness. I can't really like show them anything. Like, I can't show them my skills to be like, look, I can demonstrate for you how I would do this. I can't do that because it's virtual. Um, But I'm thinking about making a video series about how a blind person does fill in the blank as an OTA, just to kind of show my competence in the skills, because I do have competence in it. Obviously, I wouldn't have passed my fieldworks and become an OTA if I didn't have competence. So yeah, that's where I am at right now. COVID has definitely thrown a loop in things, but it's slowly getting better. The only downside, though, that I've discovered is if you need mental health services during the pandemic, it's definitely a challenge. I live in a small town, so mental health is not always a priority. Very difficult. I literally talked on the phone with someone for 3 hours about why I needed electronic documents, uh, and it was just a whole thing. So yeah, I think definitely for sure COVID has impacted a lot of people in various ways. But even if you have a disability, that adds to it. It adds to the mental uh, health issues that can arise because, for some people, they couldn't get to the grocery store to get food because the Ubers were not working, um, because of COVID. Or they couldn't get tested. That was a whole thing for me as well. I was struggling to get tested because I couldn't drive. Luckily, I had sighted people there to help me. They did release an more accessible COVID-19 test from the U.S. government last week, I believe. But the issue with that is you can only get 2 per person until supplies run out. And it only works if you have a smartphone, which not everyone does. And it's not accessible. Like, I have bunches of them at home, and they're all print, and they all are based on what color slash what, if there's like lines in it to show visually what the results are. So yeah, so it creates a different challenge. Like if I were by myself, I would have a difficult time testing myself, obviously, because I couldn't see it. And you have to be able to drop liquid onto like a paper thingy without touching it. I think they need to make some more COVID tests that are completely accessible for everyone that's blind, because if this is going to be anything like flu testing, they need to make it accessible, and it shouldn't be a year later. And I don't think we should be applauding the government for putting it a year later. Like, we should be like pushing them to get more. Because it's 2022, and COVID happened in 2020. And yes, I understand everybody that wants to complain about it and say that it was new, no one knew what to do. I get that, but come on, we've had 2 years. Like, let's go. Because no matter how many people want to say that we're all equal, we're all given the same treatment, we are not. And I feel like with COVID, the disabled population has been left behind again. Services were cut, as far as close contact with people. Some of that is safety concerns, which I totally understand, but sometimes it's not. It's not thought out very well for the people with disabilities. So I think we need to figure out a way to make everything work again like it was before COVID. I'm not saying do it in the same ways, but provide the same services, provide the same opportunities, because people have lost so much. Like, yes, losing a year of school for sighted people slash non-disabled students is going to be awful anyway. But if someone is working on social skills or lip reading or sign language or any kind of something they really have to focus on, and they miss out for a year, if you're a child, they're missing that critical role of development and language and learning and just interacting socially with people. So yeah, so I'm gonna get off my soapbox now. I apologize. I just think we need to do more work on the COVID-19 playing field to make it more even with the non-disabled population. This is not just America, this is like all over the world. Yeah, so anyway, that's my experience with COVID so far in 2022. As a blind person, I find it sometimes difficult because I don't always know if anyone's wearing a mask. I can't just walk up and assume that someone is or isn't. And if you ask, they get defensive. Not everyone does, but some people do. So I try to be careful with what I do because I don't know. I don't know if I'm being exposed. I'm not like overly concerned because I've already gotten it, and also, I mean, there's nothing I can do. If I get it kind of thing. But it scares me that I don't always know where people are, how close they are to me, if they're wearing a mask or not. And I realize the mask is not going to keep me from getting it. But you know, I do get concerned when I don't know what's happening as far as the general public, you know. And also another thing too, if there's like Germ-X or hand sanitizer in front of a store or wipes or anything like that, I would appreciate if people would let me know as a blind person slash anyone, because sometimes I didn't know there was those kind of things until someone pointed it out to me and said, there's soap over here, there's hand sanitizer over here, you can use it. You know, no one told me, so I didn't know. So I think we need to make that a priority as well, letting people know that there are ways to minimize your risk of COVID-19 through the use of hand sanitizer and everything that is provided at stores. Okay, I'm going to be done now. I apologize for my long video. Wanted to get my experience. Oh, one more thing too. I have to add, working a guide dog with COVID is really hard. I was struggling. Like, I was really tired. And we could only walk like a block, and I was like out of breath and just like tired. So yeah, and also guide dogs don't know how to go around people 6 feet apart. They can't social distance. So Beacon gets really close to people before she turns. That's just how she works. She gets really close. So I chose not to work her when I had COVID because, one, I couldn't really physically do it, and two, people were everywhere, and Beacon was like, we're going to go around that person, but we got to get right here. We got to get super close first. So it is difficult. But thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. This is my life now. This video was so long, I'm really sorry. I just wanted to give my experience with COVID in 2022 as a blind person who lives in a small town / I'm in the city. I'm very careful with touching things because, you know, you don't know what that's been touched by. You don't know who touched that last. So thank y'all for watching. I really appreciate it. Feel free to subscribe if you want to. If not, that's okay too. I just do this for fun. So yeah, so if you're watching this, I appreciate it, and thank you all. Have a good day.